Good afternoon, guys. My name is Alena Shautsova. I'm an immigration attorney from New York. And in today's live, we will be discussing updates that I would like to share with you with regard to immigration lawyers' efforts to advocate for immigration reform in Washington, D.C. just this past week. Who went, why, who did we meet with, what was the result of the meeting. And we're also going to talk about the sweeping changes that the United States government is going to implement at the southern border. So it may affect those who are planning on coming to the United States or is already waiting to come to the United States. We know that there are thousands and thousands of people are at the border seeking entry, waiting for the Title 42 to expire. So these are very important updates. So thank you very much for joining. If this is your first time here, welcome. Please do not forget to let me know where you're watching from. Say hello. And also, in the end, do not forget to type your questions, because in the end, I'm going to refer to them and I'm going to answer some of you guys' questions. So thank you very much for joining. We're going to wait a couple of seconds so more people are going to join. Hi, Michael. Hi, UK. Hi, Canada. Hi, Aftab. Don't forget to share this stream, because this is how YouTube, Facebook algorithms are working. The more people are sharing it, the more people will be joining, and the stream is going to be more popular. I guess by now we all know that social media is the key. And yes, I hope you all are doing well. I hope you all are excited about the spring coming. And let's start. So first of all, I would like to give you some updates with regard to my effort, but not only mine, efforts of other immigration lawyers who are feel that we need to do something, bring some change, pay back to the community, basically take care of our clients, of people who are not necessarily our clients, just immigrants in the United States. A lot of immigration lawyers have immigrant background. And this past week, about 250, more than actually 250 of us, went to Washington, D.C. to meet with our elected officials. Each state was represented very well, and we each met with our officials. For example, I met with other people from New York, with senators and congressmen, or their helpers, ADs, how we call them, from New York, to talk about immigration reform, to talk about the points, the suffering, the need, and to inquire about the efforts that are being done in Washington, D.C. to bring us so needed change. Specifically, we spoke about things like here. We spoke about, first of all, relieving the backlogs. Many of you are stuck in either asylum waiting backlogs or USCIS processing backlogs, when you wait for your adjustment of status to be processed for 36 months plus, when you wait for your asylum interview to be heard for 7 years. And this is just a couple of examples. Or, for example, I-601A waiver. Currently, you have to wait for it to be processed for 2.5 years. This is, of course, unacceptable. The backlog just grew during the pandemic and became much worse when many USCIS officers were fired, quit the job, or they just lost their workforce for a million different reasons. And we were asking to do something about that. And I'm going to tell you that that specific proposal met with a lot of enthusiasm in Washington. So I hope that we will get the additional funding necessary to speed up and make the system of processing of your case more efficient. So this is very important. Another important point that we were discussing was fair processing at the border, to eliminate or reduce as much as possible physical detention of people who are coming to the United States, to limit the detention of people who are already in the United States. of course, to make our courts fair, just, and independent from prosecutors. You may know that currently immigration judges belong to the same branch that immigration prosecutors. So this is concerning. The judge should be independent and the federal immigration courts should be independent. This was another point to discuss. As you see, there are a lot of problems in our immigration system which limit our clients' access to justice and fair processing, and it requires a lot of effort to make the change. Of course, I'm not expecting that the change is going to come tomorrow, but if many people, not necessarily just immigration lawyers, are going to slowly but surely pressure the elected officials to pay attention to their issue, opposed to 10,000 other million issues that elected officials are dealing with on a daily basis, the immigration reform will come. But most importantly, we're also advocating for paths to permanent residency for many of you. Starting with DACA and TPS, these are two favorable groups that I would say even more conservative Republican congressmen would, not everybody, of course, from the Republican Party, but some were very favorable and in favor of helping. That would be the DACA beneficiaries. So that's what we were doing. And as I stated currently, I know that there is legislation that probably will pass with regard to the budget related to unaccompanied minors. I know that there is a lot of push for that. So obviously, we have to help the children who are coming to the United States and who do not have anyone. And we, as an adults, uh, let alone Americans, we have responsibility to help those kids. But it requires resources, and resources are governed by the budget, right? So that one of the points that will be addressed, and that particular group of immigrants, vulnerable group, probably will have the budget at least to cope initially with their immigration challenges, but also budget for those and many of you who cannot afford immigration counsel. You may be aware that in the United States, if you cannot afford an attorney in criminal proceedings, which is very important, right? This is your life at stake, whether you go to jail or you're going to face some punishment that will affect you for life, or you're going to be acquitted. This is very important. For that reason, and to make sure that you have your due process rights in the United States, if you cannot afford an attorney will be given to you at no cost. And the way the system works is that some lawyers are sourced from legal aid services, which are funded by the government, and that lawyer is working for the legal aid. But there are also something called 18B panels, at least that's what they're called in New York, where private lawyers, which are sometimes famous lawyers, expensive lawyers, which you will never be able to afford unless you're a billionaire or millionaire, otherwise are donating their time at a very small rate. They're paid, but they're paid like a low bond, a very small rate, much lower than their usual rate. And government provides fundings for that. So that's called 18B panel. You sign up for that. There is a vetting to make sure that you have sufficient experience to take on hard cases, for example. So we want something like this to be set up for immigration population as well. You may know that your chance of winning a case in immigration courts, if you don't have a lawyer, is less than 10%. It's drastic difference with what you have and your chance of when you have a lawyer. So it's very important that we have that resource available, and I'm sure the United States government can address that adequately, and that's what we were lobbying for. One of the things we were lobbying for. And again, there was much more to that. We all provided to our elected officials these flyers with a barcode, which if scanned will take them to something called legislative ask. What do we want from them? And we're going to be staying in touch and providing resources for them, answering questions and helping them to push for immigration reform, because as you can imagine, it requires a lot of research and understanding of how immigration laws are working. Lots of people have misunderstanding about how immigration laws in the United States are operating. And that's why we're there, to help, to push, and to help you. So that's what we were doing. And this is the update I wanted to share. If you have specific questions about it, I'll be very happy to answer them. So just let me know. Another important thing I wanted to tell you about concerns the changes that are coming to the United States southern border. And let me start from the very beginning, because there is a lot to discuss here. Basically, you may be aware that on May 11th, Title 42, the law that was used for, 3 years at this point, to stop the migrants at the border, is going to expire. And the Biden administration is not going to renew its application at the border. But what to do? Of course, as I predicted, what can be done and will be done is expanding of the usage of expedited removal. Expedited removal is a tool that is allowing CBP officers at their discretion often to expeditiously remove somebody prior to allowing them to enter the United States. If I had to describe it, probably that's how I would describe it. Basically, a person will be screened if they have credible fear, if they can show credible fear that they will be persecuted in their home country, and if it is determined that they're not, they will not be allowed to proceed further unless an immigration judge is going to reverse that determination. This process is going to take maybe a couple of weeks, according to what I'm reading, because the government is aiming to give you a credible fear interview within 24 hours, very fast. They're allocating sufficient resources, hiring more people, opening more processing centers to make sure that people who do not have a possibility of relief and just would like to come to the United States or cannot prove that they have a possibility of relief are not going to be released and allowed to be in the United States. They're expanding physical removal, saying that they will be doubling and tripling the flights out of the United States for people who are going to be removed. Doubling and tripling flights for people who are going to be removed. Mostly these changes are going to be applied to those who are coming without authorization, not through the authorized points of entry. So for those of you who are planning on using CBP One app, these are now the changes that should be applied to you. These are for people who mistakenly or otherwise decided to cross to the United States border between the ports of entry. Extremely, extremely important. They're also saying that they will be detaining families. So if you're coming, what does it mean? You would ask. Well, kids. They're going to be detaining kids and adults together. Same detention rules will be applied now to children, families, as to single adults. Basically, if you have a possibility of relief, you're going to be free at some point. If not, you're going to get stuck. Or they're also saying that they're going to be using more and more alternatives to detention. So it's kind of like sends mixed signals. But from what I understand, detention will be used much more often because in the announcement shared by DHS, they're saying that they are expanding their holding capacity. Why would you expand your holding capacity if you're not planning on detaining much more people, right? So that's what they're saying. Another thing is that they said that they will be working with their partners in the Western Hemisphere to basically make sure that people just don't come to the United States. So those who are seeking to enter illegally, also how somebody in Mexico will be able to determine it, but they basically will not be even to allow to enter to that country. That's what I'm reading here. And I usually am right, but I don't know. We'll see how it's going to all work. Increasing regional processing capacity, so on and so forth, basically implementing a lot of measures to make sure that this vast amount of people that's seeking to come to the United States will be stopped as early as possible. And of course, combating smuggling misinformation, that's a big one, because I know that at some point people were saying, not now, but several years from now, several years ago, that in certain Central American countries, there were radio programs saying, come to the United States, we're going to help you to come, it's very easy. They were forgetting to tell you that you're going to face removal proceedings, you will be detained, it's not that easy. So that was done when we saw those very vast, huge caravans of people coming to the southern border. So now they're trying to prevent that by saying that they will be combating smuggling efforts, misinformation in those countries, and basically stiffening the procedure. No longer, no longer being very generous with not using detention, basically detention and expedited removal. So that's what's going on. Of course, as I said, mostly it's going to be relevant for those who are outside of the United States. But one thing may be relevant for those who are inside. If you have an order of removal, you've heard me. They're saying that they will be doubling and tripling flights out of the United States. Doubling and tripling flights. It means that if you have an order of removal and you're going for those checkups, supervised releases, you've got to have a plan. Okay, you got to have a plan as to what you're going to do the next time you come in and you haven't filed for anything and you're told that this is your last time and you will be deported. So think about this, it's very important. And now I will be answering some of you guys' questions. Hi, Pascal. Yay, from Georgia. Yeah, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. Hi, Barry. Hi, Canada. Shamis, can you help me to come over? No, I do not do that. I only help you when you're already here. You see, immigration lawyers unfortunately cannot even advocate, strictly speaking, unless this issue is going to be resolved by the United States Supreme Court, to come over here. That's not allowed. Not allowed. But if you have specific questions about the process, I'll be very happy to answer them. Hi, Larby, you're welcome. Hi, Ali, watching from Chicago. Yay. Hi, David. Yes, backlogged for CO8 for asylum pending for 7 years. That's correct. By the way, if you filed your case in 2016, be alert. Many of the cases that we filed are now being called from 2016. And by the way, the same is true for cases that were filed recently last fall. So just know about that. Hi, Soul. Hello. Will my wife's green card through EB3 I-45 affect if I have a pending asylum and I'm in removal proceedings? I'm asking because all my friends received green card already and my wife still has not. Well, if there are two spouses in the United States, right? And she's filing for EB3 case, if she qualifies for it, if she qualifies for adjustment of status, if she's never accumulated more than 180 days of unlawful status here, she should be okay. Just because you filed for asylum, it shouldn't affect her, in any way. That would be my quick answer. But if you still have doubts, if you need us to look into it further, please call my office, 917-885-2261. You can book a consultation. We're going to sit down, look at her timeline, the documents, when everything was filed, and I'm going to tell you maybe more what I think about that. Hi, Nizam. Hi, Brar. Don't be shy, guys. Ask your questions. Hi, David. Is there any update about MABNI? Or is there any other similar program available for individuals with pending asylum case backlogged for 7 years? From what I know, MABNI stopped recruiting people. Okay, this is what I know according to the last public announcement that we had. Now, nothing stops you from stopping by at the military recruitment center and inquiring about the availability of any program. But from what I know, it's no longer available. And what else can you do? I do not know of any statewide action like MAMNI that will allow you to switch the process, but typical ways. basically marriage to a US citizen, provided it's real. In certain situations, if you are in affirmative backlog, you will be able to be sponsored by your employer, but you probably will have to leave the United States and come back after you get your visa. Some people will qualify for a U visa, for example, if they became a victim of crime. Not everyone, of course, thankfully, not everyone. Hi, True Wisdom, USCIS received my documents in December of 2022. I'm a 33 daughter, a US citizen. I live in Mexico as of January 2023. It says under review. Can you break down the process? Oh, no, I can't. Why I cannot? Because under review doesn't really mean anything. Under review means that your case can be reviewed for 30 days or for 120 days plus. I do not know. You see, nobody knows. But usually, if you're going through the NVC processing, within 90 days after you update your documents, you're going to receive an update from them saying, this was received, this is missing, this was rejected, and so on and so forth. So, also depends on the local consulate wait time, how long you're going to be waiting for your processing. Hopefully not that long. I wish I had bad information for you, but I don't. I don't think anybody really can predict as to what's going to happen there. Hi, Zabeda. I need help. Let's see, to get my client from Pakistan to New York. He's an Afghanistan citizen. How can I help him? Who do you need to get? Tell me. Who is it that you are? Is it your family member? Because you may submit, if somebody is a Afghani citizen, look into the parole options, perhaps humanitarian paroles that are available to them. See, maybe that will be of any potential to you. Hi, Tatiana. My son has F1, but it's difficult for me to pay for his university as I have two more sons. I'm here on U4U. Is it possible if my son will leave the United States and come back? Is it possible? Do you remember the rules of U4U? You see, not everyone will qualify for it. You have to show that you've been in Ukraine prior to a certain date announced by the government. And from what I know, and again, this is just my information from other lawyers, if you leave the United States and trying to re-enter, your U4U may not be approved for you. So it's not an easy situation, but I think what you need to do is to check what's going on with his entry. When did he enter? When he lived in the United States, at which point he resided there, and if he can qualify for TPS, all right, temporary protected status for those who are from Ukraine, that would probably help you out a lot, right? This is just my quick thoughts, you know. Hi, last Mupondi. Can I adjust my status for marriage if I entered the US through Mexico? Did you enter the United States without inspection? All right, if you did that, usually no, usually you can't. Because in the process of adjustment of status, before you file, you have to show that you have a legal entry, unless you qualify for an exception, 245I exception, or you can prove to the United States government that you were waived in. So the mode of exact entry matters, how you entered, okay? Did anybody know about that? Did you go through the port of entry? Did you misrepresent yourself to be someone else or not? If you just went through in between the ports of entries, most of the times you will not be able to adjust. But guess what? If unfortunately a spouse of such an immigrant turns out to be abusive and the non-citizen can qualify for VAWA, then the mode of entry will not matter. I hope you answered your question. But in your particular situation, if everything is good with your spouse, look into I-601A waiver route. Okay? I-601A waiver route. Hi, Jeffrey. My biometrics appointment is taking too long, like 5 months. keep giving me new date for rescheduling. This is so strange. They're giving you a new date to reschedule your biometrics appointment. This is super weird. Not sure what's happening with that. If, as a rule of thumb, if there is something strange going on, okay, with your case, and you believe that USCIS is dragging their feet, call your local congressman. You don't have to be a citizen or a green card holder to call them and ask for help. Hi, Dmitry. Hello. Hi, Masih. I'm an Afghani citizen. Could you help me to file any kind of case for legal entry in the United States of America? You should look into humanitarian parole, but for humanitarian parole, you need to have a sponsor. Now, an immigration attorney cannot sponsor immigrants themselves, but there are websites where you can be matched with a sponsor. You don't have to be related to them, who can help you to come to the United States. This is very important. So you need to do a little bit of research, and if you're lucky, you will be able to do that. Okay? Hi, Andrea. I recently just became a US citizen through marriage. Congratulations. Can I sponsor both my parents, and is it better to go with a lawyer? Andrea, yes, you can sponsor both of your parents. You will need to look into affidavit of support requirements. If your income by yourself is not sufficient, you may need to have your spouse's income counted as well, or you may have to have a joint sponsor. It's better to go with a lawyer. Well, obviously, it's easier, right? It's just the same thing as self-treating yourself. If you are feeling sick, and you read something on WebMD as to what to do, you may have a wrong idea if you're not a professional. Same applies to a lawyer, right? Same applies to having a lawyer to, help with a case. Sometimes there are silly mistakes that people may make that will affect their case. One thing that I would advise you to do if you are sponsoring your parents is pay attention to two things. One thing, have your parents ever tried to come to the United States? Have they ever filed for a visa to come to the United States? So that visa application will be reviewed during this process. If they ever had any criminal convictions, criminal arrests, pay attention to that, because that may prevent them from getting the visa. You do not want to start the process and then will never be able to finish it, because you're going to waste your resources, and resources, time, money, hopes. So usually before you start filing for something, consult with an attorney to make sure that you will be able to finish that process and it's going to go smoothly. You will not be, surprised with the fact that your parents cannot come to the United States, or they need a last minute waiver application. Very, very important. All right, and let me take the last question for today. Hi, Las Mapondi. I entered through Mexico and was put in ICE detention, was released after the incredible fee interview, and I was granted a conditional parole. Okay, so those who are granted conditional parole, 236B, I believe it's called, cannot adjust. Okay, if it was a different type of parole, to something 12D5, I believe, then they can. So take your paperwork to a lawyer. The lawyer will be able to tell you and confirm. But conditionally paroled people usually cannot adjust, unfortunately. That's how it works. But maybe your situation is different. What if they made a mistake in your favor? That would be nice, but I would not know. I would not know. Well, thank you very much, guys, for watching. It was a pleasure. Please like and share this stream. Don't forget to sign up for my channel if you're watching me on YouTube. And don't forget to join us, join the huge community that now we have on Facebook, so we can stay connected. And I'm going to provide you more updates next week, hopefully. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you soon.